artillery bombardment and shellings continued overnight in Rafah, and Israeli forces remain in control of the main border crossing with Egypt, blocking most humanitarian supplies, while hospitals run critically low on fuel. Palestinians were already facing famine, especially in the north, but now there's even less aid getting in. Many have fled to central Gaza, but only one water station is working there. Meanwhile, the US president has sent his strongest message yet to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Joe Biden says he'll stop the supply of weapons to Israel if it launches an all-out attack on Rafah. Well, Yossi Beilin is a former Israeli Minister of Justice. He's joining us now from Berlin. Thank you very much indeed for being with us on Al Jazeera. I want to talk to you, first of all, about Joe Biden's threat to pause weapons to Israel. This, if I understand it correctly, is going to affect future arms deliveries. But in real terms, in your assessment, how much of a threat do you think that actually is?
Well, I think that it is a message rather than something very practical. I'm not a military expert, but I don't believe that the daily activities in Rafah or somewhere else are dependent on the American delivery of ammunition.
Do you think that in order to show a strong response to this threat, in inverted commas, from Joe Biden, it could actually push Benjamin Netanyahu's resolve to move further into Rafah and perhaps more strongly with a subsequent significant loss of life, simply to show that he will not be dictated to by another government?
No, it's not a kindergarten. I don't think so.
In terms of the drive that Benjamin Netanyahu has in order to push forward a move into Rafah, how much of that do you think is coming from him and how much of it is being driven by the far-right elements of his coalition?
Well, I don't believe that we are going to a kind of a zero-sum game in this war or in any war between a state and a terrorist group or terrorist even army. And I think that we should and we can put an end to this war very, very soon by doing two things. Insisting on the Israeli side, insisting on the exchange of prisoners, of hostages, and on the other hand, or additional to that, to demand that the Palestinian Hamas leadership will leave Gaza. Israel cannot afford it, that Hamas will continue and govern Gaza. But it doesn't mean that we have to continue this war forever and kill innocent people on both sides. It's enough. I mean, it is very long, much longer than expected. And as you know, in the history, it happened in '82 when Arafat was asked to leave Lebanon with his leadership, and he did it. And then things changed, and the rest is history. I think that here again, we should and we can insist on the Hamas leadership to leave Gaza, and then a multilateral force of Arab countries and others may rule Gaza. Israel will totally withdraw. And this is, I believe, the most reasonable solution for the problem. I cannot tell you what is going to happen tomorrow in Rafah or in another place, but it might be endless, and it is not helping any of us in the current situation in the future.
In terms of, in the event that Hamas was not to have a role in the future of Gaza, obviously somebody would have to have a role. What structure would you see being put in place that would be acceptable to all sides?
Well, I don't know whether it is going to be acceptable for all sides, but the Americans, who are playing a very important and positive role, should insist on it. And I mean PLO. This is our partner. With the PLO, we signed the Oslo Agreement and all the other agreements in the last 30 years. The Gaza Strip was taken by force when Hamas took it in June 2007, and until then it was the Palestinian Authority which was in charge on Gaza, and that should be the case in the future. But because of its weakness, I'm not sure that it is possible. I'm not sure that the Palestinian Authority is ready to take it upon itself right now. So there is a need for a transitional period of a year or two in which, as I said, a multilateral force will rule Gaza and be in charge of saving it and its citizens and help building it again.
It's widely believed that Benjamin Netanyahu supported, albeit perhaps unofficially, Hamas being in power in Gaza for years because he didn't want Israel to have that responsibility. And China's recently hosted talks between Fatah and Hamas in order to try to find some sort of common ground, Fatah being the political group behind the Palestinian Authority. It's going to be difficult to find a way of unpicking Hamas from Gaza, from a region where, at least administratively, it has had such a strong hold for so long.
First of all, you are right. I think it won't be easy. And this is why I believe that it is not a matter of an ongoing war, but a political decision of the Hamas leadership. They can save themselves and the Gaza Strip if they take such an offer. And then I believe that there will be Israelis who will say, no, we cannot let them leave, and we should continue and fight. But here it is going to be the American role to tell them enough is enough. And now this leadership, regretfully, will survive and go to another place. And you are also right in saying that Netanyahu preferred, not that he was supportive, God forbid, Hamas, but it was easier for him to deal with Hamas and to allow them to get the budget that they needed, rather than to deal with the PLO or the Fatah, the Fatah-led PLO, in order to get to the two-state solution, because he doesn't want to partition the land. And that is his huge, biggest mistake.
You mentioned that there were two key elements that, as far as you could see, were intrinsic to ending this conflict. One, of course, was agreeing an exchange of prisoners. The second one was the role of Hamas, as we've talked about. Hamas has already agreed that there will be an exchange of prisoners, an exchange of captives being held in Gaza for prisoners being held in Israel. So what is the fundamental block, do you see, to the ceasefire negotiations that are currently going on in Cairo, if those agreements have already been reached by Hamas?
I must say that I read the Hamas offer. This is not a nuance of the previous offer by Egypt and Qatar. It is a new idea. The idea is that the exchange of prisoners is very blurry. You don't know, if you read it carefully, what is the number of hostages that babies and old people and others who they are ready to release. And on the other hand, it means that Hamas continues to rule Gaza. And that is bad news, I believe, for all of us, or for all of us who believe in peace.
Yossi Beilin, we appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.